Well, let's bring in constitutional lawyer Kolade Olutekunbi, who joins me live in the studio. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Interesting development since Tuesday last week. In fact, they said this decision is going to be a landmark in the administration of President Bola Tinubu, and this will determine in a long time how his presidential term is going to be remembered. Now, what we're hearing is that the president has no legal foundation whatsoever to suspend an elected governor as well as any other elected officials. They say there is no enabling law, no precedent in the 1999 Constitution that I see you are holding, no Supreme Court ruling that grants the president such sweeping powers. Some have called it civilian coup d'etat. How do you react?
Well, thank you for having me. I think those who have taken pains to discuss about this matter, depending on which side of the coin you intend to follow, unfortunately have not really addressed issues without their bias. The problem is that we have the laws, which is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. No one has been able to point a particular section of the Constitution that the president has violated. Yes, there is, when a state of emergency is declared, it is a display of constitutional order. It is something that, you know, depending on the facts, I used to tell people that the facts of every case are different. So you cannot relate a particular incident in terms of what happened at that time to what is currently on ground. You will recall that when the state of emergency was declared, the president actually made a broadcast to the whole nation, and he laid the foundation. I want somebody to tell me the provisions of the Constitution that prohibits the president from taking the action he has taken. Yes, people said that the removal of the governor was unconstitutional, but the question to ask is that, was the governor removed? Because the president did not say the governor was removed. What the president said was that the governor was suspended for a period of 6 months. So suspension and removal. The Constitution talks about how the governor of a state can be removed. No doubt about that. For me, I believe that...
Do you think we have gotten to that point? Because Section 305 requires an imminent breakdown of public order.
Yes.
Some would say Rivers State isn't in active warfare.
That's subjective.
In fact, the opposition PDP claims this is a political move to undermine
That is still subjective.
Fubara.
That's the subjective.
No, I'm asking your understanding of that law.
No, this is
maybe two fire incidents in the pipelines. In fact, as of today, the governor is even claiming that nothing really happened in those places.
Security matters that will require the declaration of state of emergency needs not be physical outbreak of law and order. If there's an imminent threat to the federating units, to any of the federating units, and that is of such proportion that will affect the nation, the president has a duty.
So that means it has not affected it. The president, you are saying perhaps what has happened is a potential...
Yeah, the Constitution anticipates
impact on public order.
The Constitution anticipates that if there's a threat, the word threat is that it's about to, it has not actually happened. So these are subjective, and who determine where there's a serious threat to the federating unit? There are those that has the opportunity to have the informations as may be disclosed to them by the security outfits.
I hear you, but
I don't believe that we will have to demonstrate it by the complete collapse of the entire system.
You know that the Rivers incident is beyond just the attack or the supposed attack on the pipelines. It has a rich political undertone, and one of the big players is a minister under this administration, whose name wasn't mentioned for once during Mr. President's speech.
That is why.
So that political undertone is perhaps one major foundation upon which many of the critics are nailing Mr. President for
that
this
is
decision.
why I said it depends on which side of the coin you try to follow. It appears as the state of declaration of state of emergency in Rivers State has been divided between the governor, the Fubara governor, and the Honorable Minister of Federal
Territory,
Nestle Wiki. For me, I believe we should look beyond that. First and foremost, let's accept the fact that was there any need for declaration of state of emergency? And nobody is in better position to answer the question than the president himself. And secondly, what has happened in Rivers State? What step has the governor taken before the declaration of state of emergency? Remember, Wike is not the governor of Rivers State. Somebody was sworn in under the constitution to be the governor of the state. And that is the person that has the constitutional responsibility to Rivers State.
I understand the responsibility of Mr. President, but I'm sure you've also heard critics say they have pointed out states like Zamfara and Plateau that have had a worse security crisis, yet no emergency rules.
So determine what is worse security crisis.
Well, attack on human life, disruption of human activities, that's glaring to the eye to see.
Instigated by who?
Well, that is subjective.
You see,
but as long as
the case in Rivers State,
we've reported kidnapping, abductions, you know.
The case in Rivers State, for my little understanding, is a bit different. Where the principal actor themselves are the people who are the custodian of the governors of a state. It's a little bit critical and different. We are talking of forces beyond a governor of a state, who is also not the principal actor of the breakdown of law and order.
That is assuming that the governor is guilty. Now, who determines?
It's not a question of
because
guilt.
It is Mr. President's word against Governor Fubara. Yeah, Governor Fubara is saying, I have no relationship with the militants.
You see, if we say the president word against Governor Fubara, who is in charge of the Federation of Nigeria? It's the president. Certainly not the governor. It's the president. And the president has enormous responsibility conferred on him by the provisions of the Constitution, which includes ensuring that none of the federating states will act in such a way that it will affect the federation called Nigeria. Okay. Because that the state governor had these cases of Fubara and the governor, the minister of federal territory, had been on for a while. And you will recall that at a point, the Supreme Court delivered a judgment, a far-reaching judgment, as relates to Rivers State. And the Supreme Court described what happened in Rivers State as absence of governance. Absence, that's a serious indictment. So, is it the president that wrote the judgment for the Supreme Court? The point is that let us not be too emotional and sentimental. I personally, as a constitutional lawyer, do not want to see a day where a governor that was elected and this legislature that were also elected being asked to leave office on the grounds of
Mr. Olutekunbi, you know that we run a democracy, right? And the challenge right now has to do with whether or not public trust in institutions of government is waning. Even the decisions made at the apex court, it's got to a point where it doesn't resonate with many of the voices we hear amongst the people. Let's take Professor Wole Soyinka, for instance, who is a long-time ally of President Tinubu in the fight for democracy, who has also condemned this declaration. In his word, he says, such a move betrayed the spirit of federalism. And then he goes ahead to say, if the president can impose emergency rule whenever a state has internal strife, doesn't this erode federalism? Some are saying this decision, does it align with democratic principles for a nation that has made so much progress in over 2 decades?
That's the point we are making, that it depends. You see, the information that is available to the president, was it made available to Professor Wole Soyinka? So when you are making comment, it is very easy for us to make a comment from what we have seen to have taken place. But the point is that the information, the critical security information, which the president we saw that what happened before the broadcast was made. There was the meetings of the of those who are
Service
in charge of our security. So what were the information made available to them, to the president? Was it made available to Professor Wole Soyinka? Would Professor Wole Soyinka have done something differently if he were to be the president of the country? And there's an imminent threat to the nation. How is the country threatened? That's the question you should ask. It's not about physical fight on the streets.
Do you agree with him? The Nobel laureate now, when he said that the Nigerian constitution has given too much powers to the president, and he's called for an amendment to some sections of the constitution.
We practice federal system of government. So it's either we practice federal system of government where the president has enormous power, or we practice a parliamentary system of government.
So we're just going to keep counting on the fact that Mr. President makes the right call. Shouldn't he be also guided by law to preserve democratic rule?
Yeah, and I've challenged anybody to come forward to tell us which section of the provision has been breached. Because the provision of the Constitution that allows for declaration of state of emergency was followed by the president. Not only was it officially gazetted, it was submitted to the National Assembly. Don't you ask the question that both the houses of assembly ratified it?
The issue of imminent breakdown of public order is not something that was visible for all to see. I mean, it is debatable.
That's why I say
some can say, in fact, the announcement came as a huge surprise, especially for people in Rivers State,
I'm sure
who are supposed to be at the center of it.
Even the president himself alluded to that fact, that it was a difficult decision for him to take. It is not something, you see, we must give credit to those that are our leaders. We should not just run them down when issue happen, because we don't know what information is available to him. The president that we know before he became president, the person that is in charge of the affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is a demonstrated Democrat. He has demonstrated strong values of democracy. So if at a point, a situation like this has occurred, has anybody tried to look back and say, what exactly must have informed this decision? Is it a decision that could be, is it avoidable? Because if you now have the governor of the state, who is now being the one that is accused of being instrumental to the breakdown of law and order, now, how do you now declare a state of emergency? How will the governor function? What responsibility is governor supposed to play in this state of emergency? How will it be that the governor who is, I'm not saying that he has done anything wrong, that is alleged to have been the cause of the security breakdown. How will he function?
He disagrees with the position that he did anything wrong.
He would certainly
He said he
disagree,
has no relationship with the military.
From the antecedent of the statement he has made, even to us, both in the electronics media and the print media, we know that certainly he has made some very careless statements.
We'll get back to that shortly. Let us take a look at what happened at the National Assembly, because Section 305 clearly stated that a two-thirds majority is needed in the National Assembly to ratify Mr. President's decision. Yes. We didn't see that. What we saw was a voice vote. And some have called it procedural breach.
No, you see,
because all of this adds up to the credibility of the decisions.
Yes, that is. You see, we all. It's just let me put it this way. The House, they have their rules, and their rules you will certainly not fault their rules, provided that it is not unconstitutional. Now, from what we've heard, there's a record of attendance of every member that attends a legislative briefing or proceedings. From the record of attendance, the presiding officer will know what numbers have converged.
Part of that House rule requires that these election details be even published into national dailies.
No, there's no rule that says you should do it through national television. No.
I'm saying the decision of the voting, the way and manner the lawmakers voted, according to their House rule, is supposed to be published into national dailies.
Why will it be published?
No, you mentioned that they are guided by the rules.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Which rules of the House says that each members must be, these member vote must be shown to the public?
So the question I'm really asking has to do with public trust.
Yes, you see.
Because these people are there to represent the people, right?
Yeah.
The lawmakers are elected into office to do the bid of their constituents.
Have you asked yourself one simple question? That in the entire house, why would, if this declaration of state of emergency was manifestly wrong and illegal, that it passes through the House of Representatives and also the Senate?
That's the point I'm making. We're not sure of the numbers. We don't know who voted for or who voted against. Right now, there are now conversations as to whether or not they were bribed or not, which has been, of course, denied by the House. But I'm saying it is the kind of voice voting that has given room to such rumors.
No, the point is that if you have a member that converged to take a decision and there's no dissenting among them, why subjecting them to numerical counts? If we are 20 here and the constitution says 2/3 of 20 should take a decision, and by the time the matter was tabled before us, nobody spoke, nobody said anything against that decision, and they were all unanimous. So what are you counting for? The point is that were they up to 2/3 of those people that attended the legislative sitting? If they were, then what is the big?
We have to go now.
There are no big issues.
We have completely run out of time. But there are some who have said that this decision, the state of emergency,
yes,
in reality, leaves the real undercurrents of the crisis mostly intact, because it doesn't address, especially what some say heavily falls into one. In favor of one side and leaves the other side intact. But we have run out of time. We have to continue this conversation subsequently. Kolade Olutekunbi, constitutional lawyer,